All right. So good morning. Thank you guys. I almost had to cancel this session because we had another meeting at the same time, but that meeting got canceled. So I was like, this works out really nice. I can actually have I can actually do this. So this morning, this is our fourth session, and this morning we're going to talk about the financial guidelines, some fundraising basics, and if we have time, because I haven't been able to get to it in the past, I've just given you the PowerPoints, and I think we will have time. I'm going to talk about the essential elements. So I'm going to share my screen. Oops, that's not the right one. Okay, there it is. All right, I had it all working this morning. Okay, so we're going to start with our financial, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the forms and stuff, but I really want to talk to you about financial management and best practices around financial management for clubs. And this is a PowerPoint, that you could take back to your clubs and do with your club. So if you're looking for volunteer training, this is one that you could do. And this one lends itself really, really well for virtual, I think. So as we talk about it, 4-H is a public organization. And, as most of you know, we are part of the university, which is part of state government. But because of that, our program is open to any youth within our eligibility parameters. So they need to be, within our age parameters, etc. But our clubs and our county 4-H programs, and our affiliates, like our leaders councils, they are held to a higher standard of accountability and integrity for financial record keeping. This is why, we are pretty, and we haven't been as strict as it will be, but we need to know exactly how the money is being spent and that it's being spent on correct the correct things. So our organization is accountable for all of our funds. And that all of the money that's received belongs to 4-H. So this could be donations, this could be dues, it could be fundraising, or coming from other sources. And that's probably the one thing that I find with volunteers, to be honest, is that volunteers feel like, well, I raise the money, it's our money. And that is, it is all the money raised in the name of 4-H belongs to 4-H. So 4-H clubs can meet our standards by following some proper money handling skills. And so that's part of what I want to talk a little bit about today. And, these standards apply to all of our 4-H clubs and our affiliates, whether the group has 25 cents or $2,500 in the treasury. I was just looking through the financial records the other day, and we do have some clubs with significant amounts of money, and that's going to be something that I'm going to address. Dan and I are going to talk about, because we shouldn't have groups sitting on $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000. We have a couple of and I know they might be even leaders council accounts. $20,000 is quite a bit of money to be sitting on. We are a nonprofit. So when I worked in Michigan, and this probably won't be the case here, but when I worked in Michigan, the rule was whatever the club raised that year, they had to spend that year. And at the end of the year, if they hadn't spent all their money, they needed to tell us what they were going to spend it on. Like my leaders council had decided, or my leaders council was going to be spending, they were saving money to build a new concession stand at the fairgrounds. And so they needed, $20,000, $30,000. And so they would save up, but clubs shouldn't be fundraising just to fundraise. And then funds that are raised under the name of under the 4-H name and emblem must be used for educational purposes. I know for I've had clubs in the past that have raised, you know, $25,000 to go to a national contest, which is great. But what they would do is they would pay for moms, dads, siblings, aunts, uncles, everybody that attended. They would pay for their trip to Six Flags, you know, that the club, you know, that they wanted to do, or they would pay for these you know, activities that were not necessarily educational based. And the other piece of this, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, is if it's raised in the name of 4-H, it needs to be used for 4-H, either your 4-H members or your certified leaders. It should not be used for grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, you know, unless they are an official chaperone. So the 4-H educator, or the extension educator, program manager, community-based instructor in each of our respective communities, they are counties, they are really the ones that are responsible for their, they're the ones that are responsible for ensuring that you know, that the money and that the policies are being followed. So again, some best practices: money raised in the name of 4-H should be deposited in a federally recognized, that's a FDIC member financial institution, in the account bearing a 4-H name. Now, I realize that many of you have struggled, and I completely understand, struggled with banks, trying to get bank accounts opened. This has been the craziest place I've ever lived for banks, you know, being able to get them open. Hopefully that will be rectified in the next 6 months. So where we will have the system in place to get the EINs, etc. So the check should require 2 signatures, the club treasurer and the adult leader. But here's the thing: those 2 individuals should not be related. It should say must not be related. You cannot have a mother and daughter, or a mother and son, or a, you know, whatever. They should not, will not be related. Now, most banks, hopefully everybody understands that most banks do not, even if you require the check to have 2 signatures, most banks do not. They'll let it go through with 1 signature. The DBA, I don't remember what the DBA was, Louisa. I remember it briefly, but I don't remember it completely. But so they are, but you should, but just know that, you know, for best practices, there should be 2 signatures on it anyway. If a banking institution does not allow a youth to be a member or to be on the account, then you can have 2 adults, but they should not be related in any way. So it's, yeah, like I just said, yeah, you can have 2 adults. It is, you know, part of our learning experience is for those youth to learn financial management. And so part of that is learning some of those banking situations. If you have teens that are treasurer, and even, you know, I mean, I was treasurer of organizations when I was 10 and 11. And, you know, I was on the checking accounts. Now, granted, I didn't, you know, the adults took care of some, you know, a lot of it, but it, you know, it's a good money management tool. So, having good handling practices. So making sure that receipts are written for all monies that are received, especially if clubs are receiving cash. They should have a receipt for every month, you know, every bit of money that they collect. That could be, you know, for clubs, they could potentially have a, you know, have a receipt already typed up and you've got, you know, and then they just write in the amount, but they need to keep a copy of the receipt. When I was in the county, I actually kept a little receipt book, It was, you know, one of those that was like about this big, just a little one with duplicates. I kept it in my purse because I would run into people, and this especially, you know, most of you that are in small counties, you know, small communities, you understand this. You run into people at the grocery store, or I ran into them at Walmart, and they're like, "Oh, hey, wait, I know that camp registrations are due. Can I, you know, can I give it to you now?" And I would, you know, and so I would be able to write them a receipt right there. You know, clubs need to be, they don't necessarily need to do it exactly that, but they should be writing, you know, getting those receipts. They should be depositing money into their bank accounts within 72 hours. You know, hopefully most of you know that if you have a university account, we have a certain timeline. Actually, I think ours is it's supposed to be deposited within 24 hours, but that doesn't always happen, and we all know that. So accounts, one thing that is a good practice to use, this could be, you know, it's a best practice, it's not required, but accounts should have the bank accounts, even for the clubs. It is best if you can have the county extension office as the address for that account. That way at the office, you're getting the bank statements and you can kind of keep an eye on what's happening within your clubs. You know, you can share, then I would suggest making a copy of the bank statement. Of course, most banks don't send out copies of bank statements anymore, but if there is communication, that is the best way. And then, you know, we do require that yearly, they're supposed to turn in yearly budgets. At the same time they turn in their financial reports, they're supposed to turn in budgets. This year, you know, we haven't been real strict on that, but you know, moving forward, we probably will ask clubs for a budget. I think that they need to think about how they're going to spend their money. So some other best practices for club members need to approve payments. So at their club meetings, they need to be able to, you know, the treasurer should say, okay, we have these bills that need to be paid. You need to be able to, they should approve it as a club. The payment there should be a payment approval form used. You know, it would be, and we don't have anything created at the state level, but it could be just, you know, if somebody needs repayment for an item, you know, they went out and bought something, which is what I'm noticing a lot of clubs, like the leader will go buy something and then need to be reimbursed for it, or a parent. So then there just be a quick form. What did you buy? What, you know, how much, when, and then the receipt should be attached to that form. When it's paid, you know, there should be a piece on there. When it's paid, it should be signed by the treasurer and probably one of the leaders, and a date on it. Financial records should be kept up to date and reported at each club meeting. I think that's really important that clubs know, even if there hasn't been any change in activity, you know, sometimes there isn't any change, and they could, you know, they could then, but they could just say there's been no change, we still have this amount. Petty cash is not encouraged. It should be not used, you know, there shouldn't be petty cash as a substitute for planning and budgeting. If that club votes to have petty cash, which, you know, some of our offices have petty cash, and it should not be over $25, and there needs to be a record of that in the monthly treasurer's report. So yes, and Tasha just made the comment of it's nice if several people are involved to have it in the meeting minutes with the spending. So that way you can go back and find that. So and then I've had a lot of questions about debit cards and whether clubs can have debit cards or not. And so we have, I went through many states. And I found some policies on debit cards. And so this is really kind of best practices for debit cards. It is not good, it's not, it's a high risk if clubs do have debit cards. I do have to say it's not recommended, but understanding that a lot of places don't take checks anymore, and we do so much commerce over the internet. We're always, especially when you're in a small community and you want to do a project, you order supplies online. And so, in those cases, it's possible to have one. They should only have one debit card in the club's name. The club should not tie a PIN number to their account. So, and that is a little, if they can get away with it, it should be used only as a credit card, is essentially the way it should be used. That way, a signature or a zip code is required for the purchases. There should be no cash advances or withdrawals from the account. Original receipts need to be kept. The debit card should have the name of the club listed, not a specific person, which I believe that they can do if that's what the bank account is in. And the card should be checked out. If somebody needs to use it, they could check out that card. It should be, and that should be documented in a written log so that they always know who has the card. And then when the charges come in, that should correspond with the checkout log entry.
Sarah,
So,
can I ask a quick question about this?
Yep.
So I know we're not recommending club debit cards. In my case, the other option is our clubs have me order their stuff on Amazon, and I use my purchasing card, and then they write me a check that I send to the university. The issue I come across is the clubs, is from what I understand, are not supposed to get the sales tax exemption, but built into like my Amazon account and that. So do you recommend in that case that we just really, really strongly encourage our clubs to get their own card? Because I feel like I'm almost doing something wrong when I have them reimburse university because they're not paying the sales tax. But then if I pay the sales tax, the accounting office comes after me. So I'm not sure in this case, those two is the best practice.
Yeah. And you're exactly right, Alex, and that does tend to be a little bit of an issue. And so in that case, I would say, yes, they could get a debit card. I would, but as the 4-H staff person, you need to keep a pretty good handle on what's happening with those debit cards. So, and it might be, there might be something where you want to have, like where you have access, they have to turn in every so often, they have to turn in reports, etc. So, and then, part of it is you can still have them turn in statements. It's just they might turn those statements in of, they might turn those statements, they might have to print those statements off, because now it's all online. And so they may have to just print those off and give those to you rather than giving you. What if we don't know if they have debit cards? You need to find out if they have debit cards. So that might be something to ask your clubs of, do you guys have debit cards for your club? And, again, it's just so much hard. It's so hard to handle, or it's so much harder to keep track on debit cards. The other piece is club leaders. That's one of the reasons why they recommend having that card checked out, so it's not in somebody's wallet. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but if you have a university P card, I have used it accidentally, like especially Amazon is a great example. Before we had the business accounts, I would go into Amazon, and if my last purchase was for work and I was purchasing something for home and I didn't pay attention, it would automatically go to my university account. Now, if you do it once in a while, you don't get in too much trouble. You get, you have to do the, I promise I will never ever do this again. But if it continually happens, then they will take away, everything. And so you have to be, and that can happen so easily with somebody, you know, with a card, you know, and we don't want to think that our volunteers would use it, for personal use, but I've been through it too many times where, oh, I'll just, you know, I'm short money this month, so I'm just going to borrow this to pay, you know, I'm just going to borrow the club account to pay this bill, this month, and I'll pay it back, and then it doesn't get paid back. And so it just makes it too easy. So if they can have it so it's checked out, it would be much, much easier. Any other questions on debit cards? Okay. Then I also get questions about like PayPal accounts or other third-party vendors. So they could be allowed for clubs. However, it's kind of like the debit cards where we have to be on top of what's happening with those. You know, the recommendations are that each club only have one PayPal account. The club treasurer and the adult volunteers should be the only people with access to that account. If the treasurer or the adult volunteer leaves that position, the account password needs to be changed and redistributed. You know, and so probably every year we would need to change the password. Original receipts need to be kept. If they're receiving funds through PayPal, they need to provide a copy of the deposits to the treasurer to keep in their financial records. And it's the responsibility of the treasurer and the adult volunteer to develop a plan for keeping track of those purchases, etc., for PayPal. It also needs to be documented in the annual financial report. So again, you know, and again, no personal purchases. So again, you know, and it's the way, while we would love to have it so nobody can, you know, it's clean and smooth, it just can't necessarily you know, we know that, you know, we have to pay for things online. There's, you know, just the way our life is going, we know that these two things are becoming more and more prevalent. So any questions about like a PayPal or I'm trying to think of Square would be another one. I'm trying to think of those third-party vendors. Is it Vimo is the other one? So, okay, so year-end reports. So this is the one that I have been, I've been asking and requesting that I get copies, or I get information about the year-end reports. Those guidelines, they are in the 4-H Policies and Procedures Handbook. So they were updated in 2018, and like I said, they are in the Policies and Procedures Handbook. So all state, district, and county group accounts where money is solicited, collected, reimbursed, or raised on the behalf of Extension, they need to be audited and reported annually. Now, I know we have not, I don't believe that auditing has been a thing that has been required in Nevada, and I'm going to put together an audit form. It's super simple, and I have a slide in just a minute that talks about the audit. It's very easy, but clubs need to get used to having their books audited. So this includes all of our chartered 4-H clubs, any other groups such as our Leaders Council, 4-H project committees that have accounts, if our after-school programs have accounts. If we have market animal sale committees that are not a separate entity, if they're part of Extension, they need to go through this. And then professional associations. Now, our professional association in Nevada their account is through the university. So that one is a little bit different. But anybody that has accounts outside of the university. So so for an account audit, it's like I said, it's super easy. They would form a 3-person audit committee. And so it would be composed of a volunteer, the club treasurer, and then another adult who's not from the same 4-H entity, they could also just have another 4-H volunteer from their county, or I mean from their club, be in there that isn't part of the, the treasurer, to review all the monies that are spent and received. That each group should accurately account for all collected funds in the individual accounts, and then make sure that they reconcile all the group checking and cash accounts. And the emphasis at the club level should be really on basic money management. And so that's why we, say you should be doing, they should be doing some of these, the treasurer should be part of that. And the club members need to learn basic money management as well. So again, it's super easy, but we just need to make sure, like I was looking at some of the treasurer's report, or some of the annual financial reports the other day, and I was thinking, gosh, it'd be really nice. I'd like to see the receipts for these, and have the clubs, have they look through to make sure that they have receipts, because clubs have to keep, and leaders councils and all of this, they have to keep a receipt for everything that they spend. And really they should have a receipt, or some kind of receipt for all money that is received as well. So they are required to turn in the annual financial reporting form and the club budget. Again, I know that this year I didn't include the club budget, so that'll be moving forward. They do have those forms are on the website. Those forms have not changed yet. They will probably be different for the new club year, but just know right now that they are the same. They have to be submitted to your office. Well, essentially they have to get to me by December 31st. So that means you need to set your policy to whatever date that, I say no later than December 1st. They need to be turning in those forms along with the last month's bank statement to your office. Now, one of the questions that I get every year is, do I want those forms? Copies of those forms. This year I have everybody scanning them in and sending them. Moving forward, there's going to be a spreadsheet, kind of like I had sent out, I said, if you can't collect, if you can't scan these in and send them to me this year, here's a spreadsheet. We need to know number, we need to know how much money is in each account, essentially, for IRS. And so what we're going to do is there's going to be an annual spreadsheet that you're going to complete for each club with the club financial information included. I'm hoping, and I think that this is a possibility, I've got to double check on it, but I think through the data management program, so 4-H Online, in the new system, I think club leaders are going to be able to upload those financial forms into that system, and so that way it's in there, and we may be able to cut out a step. But we want, but that is, yeah, Molly, if you have the spreadsheets, please send it. I need all of our county club information, financial information ASAP. So Dan and I are getting ready to submit some stuff, and we have to include a spreadsheet like that. So, but again, and then you need, in your office, you need to keep a copy of that annual financial reporting form and the last bank statement, so they can be stapled together for each club or group in a locked filing cabinet. How I had mentioned I've mentioned it in the past, where you might have a file for a club. This is where it works really well. Molly, I don't know if you've mailed it since March. I have not gotten it, because Tracy may have, and Tracy's on here, but she may have picked it up, but I haven't. I haven't gotten mail since mid-March. So, but we can, and then, but again, you need to keep those. And then, it's possible if I come visit your office, I may just do, and this was something that we had to do when I worked in Idaho, is we had to do a random, this was part of our IRS guidelines, this was what they required from us, is doing random audits of those financial summaries. So essentially what I would do is I would, when I visited an office or somebody from the state 4-H office visited an office, they would just say, hey, can I look at your, you know, your annual summary of annual financial reports from clubs? And we would just go through, we would just look at and make sure that they were there. More than anything, we just have to make sure that all the clubs had their forms for that year. If you do have a club that does not turn in their forms, then there's ways that we can, you know, we can encourage that. I have turned off access to a club. I made a club inactive so that nobody can re-enroll in that club, and that club basically gets put on probation or gets put on suspension until they turn in those forms. So it is a, you know, so again, you have to, you know, we can do some things. And, you know, the minute we turned off the access to 4-H online for that club, they got their forms in because that leader got really tired of parents calling her and, you know, wanting to enroll their kids in the program. So it can be done. So any questions about the financial policies? Like I said, you know, we, right now I need to get, I've got probably about half the clubs or half the counties in.
Carrie, this is Nora. I do have a question.
Mhm.
How can you explain when should activities be run through like the 4-H clubs or councils, and when should they be run through the 4-H office, like through extension?
Mhm. So if you have, so activities, if I would say things like, it depends on the county. Some of our counties run, things, everything through the Leaders Council. It is, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. One of the reasons why some counties do that is because it's easier to pay bills through the Leaders Council checkbook than it is to pay bills through the university, which I'm sure most of you have, you know, a lot of you have experienced. But I would say if it is being sponsored by the Leaders Council, so even like an achievement night, if the Leaders Council is footing the bill for that, I would say then it should be run through their account. If they, you know, if it is, if, let's see, I'm trying to think of some examples that I've had even over the years. A horse show might be run through a Leaders Council or a horse committee or something to that effect. But if it's a class that we're teaching, say we're offering a day camp, then that's when it would be run through our office. So if it's being, you know, if the Leaders Council is planning the event, if they are, you know, if they're conducting the event, then I would say that would be under their account. Does that help answer it a little bit?
I think so. I might just need to ask you some specifics.
Yeah, and I know Sarah did a really good job explaining the difference, and I'm trying to go back and remember exactly what she had said, and for a county at one time. And so I will go back and find that answer, and then what I'll do is I'll put it in the notes of the PowerPoint, so that way it's there for you guys. Like, and I'll try to get a better explanation. But yeah, any questions, if you guys have questions, any county has questions about when something should be run through a Leaders Council or through the office, let me know, and we can work through that.
Thank you.
Yep. So a couple of things as reminders, club assets. So if any club that gets, has money or they acquire material assets, they need to have there needs to be a clearly defined and known procedure for disposing of those funds or assets if that club is disbanded. We do have something in policies and procedures now. I don't know if it was there prior, but it is in there now. But again, money or assets that are acquired in the name of 4-H need to be used for the benefit of 4-H, even if that club disbands. And they cannot disperse. So if a club disbands, they cannot take that money and split it among all the members in that club and give all those members of that club that money. They also can't give equipment to members. They also cannot give it to a non 4-H group. So, we've had, let me tell you, over the years, I've had some crazy things. I had a county one time that they had a huge robotics program in their county, and they had somebody donate an armored truck to them so that they could haul the equipment around. And I looked at it was the club that got that donated to them. And when I was working with working with the county staff, I said, you do realize that if this club disbands, Bannock County now owns an armored truck. And she goes, yes, I do. And so, and in turn, at the same time, that club also ended up getting, I think, 2 12-passenger vans donated to them. So, and then I can't remember if it was in Idaho or if it was here in Nevada. I don't remember now. But I had a club one time that the club paid for half and the leader paid for half of a goat, of a male, of a billy goat, so that they could use it for breeding purposes. The club bought, or the club members could then, use their goats, their female goats, and they'd breed to this male goat. Try figuring that one out when the club disbanded. I think we ended up allowing the leader to buy out the club's half of that goat. But when you hear of things like that, try to catch them early, because that's a little crazy. It really, we just, sometimes we have, but a lot of clubs are buying, they're getting their shooting sports equipment, they're getting grooming supplies, those types of things. Yes, they still have the armored truck, Alex, and they got it wrapped, so it had a big 4-H clover on it. I mean, it was pretty cool, but yeah, imagine, at your office having a big armored truck parked there. But so we, you got to make sure if they do have those shooting sports equipment, they don't get to keep their shooting sports equipment if they disband. Some of you know of our issues in a county where we had to get the university police involved when a leader thought that he was going to keep shooting sports equipment for himself because he wrote the grant. Well, it doesn't work that way. The grant was in 4-H name, so we have to, so it is our equipment. So that's something to let your leaders know. It really is important. If a club disbands, what they could do is they can donate to 4-H, to your county 4-H Leaders Council. They could donate money back to the Nevada 4-H endowment account. They could donate the money to National 4-H Council. I've had that. I had a couple leaders that got cranky when they left and they weren't giving money to the state for anything. So, but they wanted, they had to give it to somebody within 4-H, so they sent it to National 4-H Council. That's fine. They could potentially sponsor a 4-H award. I've seen this a lot at, for county fairs. If a club decides to disband and they don't know what to do with their money, they'll give it to whoever for a 4-H award at the fair, or they could donate it to another 4-H club. That's another option. Now, another thing, if you have a club, and I know we've had this in a couple counties here in Nevada, we've had clubs that have decided to split, where they go into, they were one club, now they're two clubs, and that gets a little sticky with money. My first suggestion in that case is to have them split the money between the two clubs. But if that happens and they start getting cranky about, because obviously they're splitting for a reason, and they could be, one could be not happy. So we can work with them on that. Any questions about those club assets or what we do when a club disbands?
Carrie, I do have one question. So in my county, sometimes we just have kind of an ebb and flow of the tide of what clubs are super active one year and not active. So if a club kind of goes inactive for a year, is it have to shut everything down, distribute the assets, and then they start over, or can it just sort of be held like in trust?
My suggestion is always kind of hold it in trust for about a year, just in case. Especially with money, it's a little, what I've said to some counties is, if you have a club disband and nobody is, but they're probably going to start again, you could put it like in your Leaders Council account. It needs to be separate, but hold it for about a year. Then find out what's going to happen. I wouldn't hold it any longer than that. So, and then equipment, they could drop off the equipment at the office, and so that's kind of a case-by-case basis, and that does happen. We have some clubs, that one year they're in their work, they're active, and the next year they're not, but then they come back. So any other questions on that? Okay, sales tax, and I know Alex mentioned sales tax. So our clubs and our group and our affiliates, our Leaders Council, and those organizations are required to pay sales tax on goods that they buy for their own use. And then if they're selling goods, like if they have some kind of sale, they are supposed to collect sales tax or pay sales tax. The only 4-H groups that are sales tax exempt are those that are receiving. So what is sales tax exempt? Are funds that are appropriated funds, so they're coming from tax dollars. So if your Leaders Council gets $2,000 from the county commission every year through tax dollars, then that would be considered taxpayer dollars potentially. I would double check with them, but you do have, so it is appropriated dollars. Individual clubs or affiliates are not exempt. And then the only, when we tell them they're exempt, tax exempt, that means that they are exempt from paying, that they're paying federal income tax. Essentially, they don't have to pay income tax. So if you want to find out about how to pay sales tax on any items that are sold by your club or council, this is the website for that on doing that. So, and then again, we always have the question, we're tax exempt, so we don't have to pay sales tax or hotel tax or any of that. But yes, they do. For us at the, when you're at the county level, as a county staff person or state staff person, with our travel is coming from tax dollars because it's coming from our appropriated dollars, either from state or from county, and that's how we do not pay hotel tax in those costs. So, or if we purchase something, that's why, and we use our state dollars, that's why we do not pay sales tax on those. And yes, if you use your purchasing card and you do not, and you pay the sales tax, they come after you. And I fight it every time. And Tracy hasn't had the experience of me doing it, but I think she's heard Lana complain about the fact that I'm like, here's a check for $7 because I did not want to deal with Walmart and going through their process of getting sales tax exemption. So, but it is a lot more work. I will tell you, it's a lot more work for your financial person. So I stopped doing it. So livestock auctions and sales. So this is something, yes, Tracy had to hunt down $2.08. I know. I just get crabby because it gets so old to do that sometimes, or I just forget. So, but I'm getting better about it. So livestock auctions and sales. This is a long time ago now. I had about an hour conversation with our national program leader at USDA about livestock auctions. And essentially, because, we always get the question of the people buying the animals want it as a tax deduction. And so it really is not a tax deduction because they're not donating to the program. They're donating the money to an individual child. It's almost, she equated it to money laundering. Well, we know it's not money laundering because this happens all the time in auctions. But essentially, someone buys the animal, they pay an organization, and then you write a check to that child for that money. So all we are is if 4-H is handling the sale, or if you have a separate livestock sale committee, livestock sale organization, etc. They are just an in and out, or there's nothing that is kept. And so that's where that's where if somebody asks you for a W-9 so they can write it off on their taxes, or a 1099, no, not a 1099, a W-9, I think that's what it is, so they can write it off at the end of the year, they cannot, you can't do it. Again, if 4-H owns a pig and they go ahead and sell that pig, then that's a different story, and the money is all going back to the county 4-H program. That's a different situation. So there's ways that it could be deductible for an animal. But they have to talk to their own personal accountant on that. What it is it's kind of a crazy, if you so in the newspaper, if you do a big ad after the sale and you list all of the buyers, the buyer could potentially use it as a marketing expense because they have an ad in the paper, or their name's listed in the paper as a buyer, and so that's getting kind of questionable. So again, they really need to consult with their own tax accountant, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that if you do have a county, if you have somebody that asks for the documentation for a so they can have it as a tax deduction, that is not, you can't give it to them. You give them a receipt for their purchase, but on that receipt, you really need to say that they are purchasing it from, purchasing such and such animal, such and such, Susie Smith's lamb for this amount. So, and it's only anything over the floor price is really what is tax deductible. I mean, you know, I can't go to the, well, I don't know if they have these anymore, but I can't go to the Saturday sale and buy a goat and write it off on taxes. I mean, you know, it's the same thing. I'm paying the floor price for it, and it's the same thing in these auctions. So again, observing the 4-H name and emblem and IRS regulations, so related to livestock sales. So number one, your livestock sales need to be following our 4-H name and emblem rules. If it's a separate entity from 4-H, like, so when I was in Idaho as a county 4-H program coordinator, our livestock sale committee was its own separate 501c3. So from the extension office, I gave, like, we did the handling of the show. We printed off the sale order, we handed it over to the sale committee, and then our job was done. We had no more skin in the game, I guess. So, but because they call themselves a 4-H and FFA livestock sale committee, we had to give them permission to use the 4-H name and emblem, and they still had to follow our policies as far as using that name and emblem. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. They also need to, you know, follow those IRS guidelines and federal tax laws. So, and they should, you know, if you do have a separate entity and they're using the 4-H name and emblem, you really should, they should either be an official part of extension, which, you know, my recommendation is that sale committees should be a separate entity, but I know that is not the case in most of Nevada. But either that, or you need to have an MOU signed with that group, so that way, you know, they have an understanding of the proper use of the name and emblem. And I've had, you know, over the years, I've had sale committees that they didn't want to follow, you know, they didn't want to use our policy, they didn't want to follow our policies with the proper use. And so they pulled 4-H out of the name of the sale. It was just the, you know, Clearwater County livestock, youth livestock sale. And so that can be, you know, that's fine. The other thing, if these sales are used as a fundraising for 4-H, then you need to ensure that the funds are used in accordance to our policies. Oh, I just realized that still has a wrong. So there is a fundraising form that I will be sharing with you guys. There's some things on livestock sales, some fact sheets that USDA put out. Now they're a little bit older, but they're still relevant. So, okay, so some fundraising basics. And I've learned some things in the last probably month about certain fundraising things that I wanted to make sure I share with you. So one thing, any club that wants to do a fundraising event, they really need to submit a fundraising request form to your office by a deadline that you set. There is that fundraising form is in policies and procedures. So there's a blank form in there that you can use. And the reason that we say this is it really is better if a club can, you know, so that way not every club is doing a fundraiser at the same weekend, or, you know, 5 clubs aren't going around to local businesses asking for money or asking for items all at the same time. It doesn't look good for 4-H, and it doesn't, you know, and so this is one way that you can, you know, keep a handle on that. The other piece is sometimes clubs will come up with some really crazy ideas for fundraisers that probably are not in the best interest of the 4-H program or your county program. You know, there could be risks involved, there could just a whole variety of things. And so, you know, it's good that you know what the clubs are doing. So again, fundraising, and also that fundraising form says, what are you going to use the money for? And I think that is, again, clubs shouldn't be out fundraising just to fundraise. They need to have a purpose for the money. They need, if they're using the name and emblem, they need to be they need to be raising the money for educational purposes. And again, they need to have the approval. All monies received from fundraising programs, expect those necessary to pay reasonable expenses and expend, and be able to spend the rest of the money for educational purposes. So private support money should be given and used for priority educational purposes and accounted for. If you fundraising groups properly authorized to use the 4-H name and emblem are to be held accountable for the 4-H program granting off, So there's a couple of, this is one thing too, like there's a couple of entities, and I haven't seen it for a while, but there was one, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like a Clover, where they would fundraise for you, or they had this product that they would, you could sell, or I don't remember exactly how it went. That in your county could sell that and earn money. Well, for that entity, you need to make sure that they have proper use of the name and emblem, and that they are transparent in what you're getting back from them. There's just there's a lot of things, and I want to remind everybody that with the use of the name and emblem, if you're purchasing something to resell, if you're purchasing something beyond your county lines, then that agency, especially if it has a 4-H Clover on it, then they need to get that approval for that from the state. And if it actually is outside of the state of Nevada and it's going to have a 4-H Clover, depending on the situation, if they're t-shirts or something like that, then we can handle, that's a little different story, but other things we would need to work with you on that. Any questions? Okay. Again, use of the name and emblem is forbidden if it exploits 4-H programs, its volunteer leaders or youth participants, or USDA, land-grant universities, or the employees. We cannot use the 4-H name and emblem if it implies endorsement of commercial firms, products, or services. And so, we've had, over the years, one time we had a bakery that called and they wanted to make 4-H bread, or they wanted to make, I don't remember, it was something, cupcakes with the 4-H Clover on it to sell in the bakery. They weren't necessarily willing to give part of the profit back to 4-H. They just saw it as, oh, this will be great. 4-H clubs can come in and do this. Well, the state 4-H leader at that time in this state told them no, because it benefited their organization. And I know I talk about this when I'm doing the portion on the name and emblem, but the same thing happens here when you're looking at fundraising. If we cannot imply endorsement for an for a commercial firm, product, or service. And so that means also if we have somebody, there has to be benefit. And again, if connected with fundraising purposes, if you're selling a product or service, you should put on whatever you have, a portion of the sale price of this product or service will be used to promote 4-H educational programs. No endorsement of the product or service by 4-H is implied or intended. Okay, raffles. This is the one that I'm learning the rules for the state of Nevada. So there's a couple of things. One, the university does require that any group or affiliate with the university that wants to do a raffle has to complete this UNR charitable lotteries application for approval. That has to be done at least 60 days prior to the event, and then that will go through an approval. Then there is also a $25 fee to the State Gaming Commission for that. Then at the county level, when you do have the raffle, then you need to document the winners, how much they won. I think you have to document how much you raised in that. And we have to then report that to the UNR controller's office. The reason for that is if we have an individual that ends up winning over whatever the threshold is, $600, I think, maybe they enter multiple raffles and they earn over $600, then they are going to get a taxable income because they have won a product. Any raffle, if it's over $600, then you do have to pay taxes on that, income taxes on that. So again, this could even be, and I don't know at this point, but I can, I'm thinking that this is even if you do cow pie bingo at the fair, if anybody's ever done that, where they have, the squares and people buy the squares, and whatever square the cow poops in, they win the money. Any of those things fall under this category. So, and this is in, we did find the charitable lotteries application. We found that in the university administrative handbook. So I wanted everybody to be aware of that. While raffles seem like a great idea and seem like easy money, I have found typically they're a little bit more of a hassle. If you're willing to deal with, all of, with these steps, then great. But that's what pretty much any state it tends to be, because it, here especially, it conflicts with gambling, and you would think it'd be easier, but it's not. At least we don't have to apply for a license, which is what's happened in other states. I could do this. Yeah, chicken bingo would be considered, I think, a lottery. So we would have to do this. Karen, yeah, we could do this training at the next state volunteer training, and I highly suggest that counties, I'm going to give you the PowerPoints, and you guys could do this training for your county volunteers as well. So, and then grants are, this is the other piece that we've had: adult volunteers, members, clubs, or affiliates. They cannot apply for or receive grants without permission from the extension educator, the program manager, or their designated authorized, the designated person in their county, or the state 4-H office. So I know, like NRA grants, we have a lot of counties that apply for NRA grants, and a lot of clubs that apply for NRA grants. Those now are supposed to go through the university, our grants and contracts office. And so I feel like we've got the process down pretty well now. It's not difficult to do. It's just, if the deadline is November 1st, I have to have those grants, or those grants have to be into the system by, at least a week to 2 weeks prior to that. So it does, and believe me, I am the worst at procrastinating for grants, in writing grants. And we do have, but you do have that, it does have to go through that. If you like those grants, if you want, it can be the extension educator, can be the person who submits the grant, or the program manager. It has to be a faculty member. Unfortunately, it can't be a staff member or a classified staff. It has to be a faculty member. If you don't have one if you don't have an extension educator or program manager in your office, or if they don't want to go through the hassle of it, then I will submit them. I think last year I submitted 12 grants on behalf of Nevada to the NRA Foundation. So, and I think there's a few of you on here that have worked with me on those, and I don't think it was a horrible process. I'm trying to make it as easy as we can make it. I have to make sure that the reports are done on time and those types of things, but it hasn't been too bad. Okay, any questions about financial practices? Okay. You guys all know that if anything comes up, you can call me. And Louisa, I did see your response about the DBA, and that's doing business as, and I think I've got to double check with Dan. I thought we got an answer of that, but I'll double check him. I'll double check with Dan on that question again. Okay, so I have a couple of minutes, and I do want to talk through the essential elements with you guys, because I think it's really important that we talk about them. You know, you can read about them all you want, but sometimes it's, you know, I want to get some ideas from you guys about that, about essential elements. So there, you know, essential elements, you're going to hear me talk a lot about, you know, one of our jobs in 4-H youth development is providing a both physically and emotionally safe place for youth. And so part of that comes from the essential elements. So there's 4, you'll see them too. There's either 4 or 8 essential elements. The 8 elements is also broke down in, you know, it can be combined into the 4. And so typically when I talk about the 4, I'm going to talk about these 4. They also can be, an acronym for them is the big M. So belonging, independence, generosity, mastery, BIGM. So big M. Sometimes, you know, sometimes somebody will say, oh, you know, remember the big M. So again, that's, you know, that's just something else. So this is really the baseline for me for what we do in 4-H. So when you talk about belonging, it's really having the young person know that they are cared about by others. So some strategies for that, you know, young people really need to have need to know that they are cared about and accepted by others. They need to feel that physical and emotional safety, and they need to feel that sense of connection with other groups. Probably belonging is the one that we find, you know, 4-H has the strongest connection to. In the statewide evaluation, or the common measures questions that we have, if you look at I believe it is the 4-H experience and also some of the universal questions, they really tie back to the big M, to these essential elements. But some ways that you can help within the county, and this could be, you know, clubs could do this, encourage that peer group cohesion. So those icebreakers, those games, that social time, you know, so often, you know, we just want to get down to the business of doing the meeting, doing the project, and we don't give time for that social. I realize right now, and what we're hearing pretty loud and clear from young people is that's what they're missing in 4-H and across the board. It's not just 4-H, it's everything. They're missing that social aspect. And so, you know, as you guys are thinking about some programming moving forward, you know, depending on how long we're in this, in phase 1, you might think about maybe having, you know, a group, you know, just having an open Zoom session to have them think of just fun things, you know, not education, not, you know, I know Mallory had mentioned on one of our sessions about, you know, a dance party. We're going to try it next Friday and see. I don't know if anybody will join or not, but we'll see what happens. But I think it would be, you know, just, and maybe you don't do the whole group of people, you know, the whole state, you know, like 5 to 19-year-olds. Maybe you have, okay, this time is for 8 to 10-year-olds, and this time is for, you know, 11 to 13-year-olds, and this time is for our, you know, 14 to 19-year-olds. And you just have it, maybe you have some games. And I've tried to share with everybody, and if people don't have that access, but a group called Training Wheels has done some really good webinars the last month or 2 on virtual games. So it's taking some of the icebreakers that we traditionally do face to face And how do you do those virtually so that you get interaction amongst the kids and just give them time to talk and such. We're finding that I'm seeing that across the country, because the question that Molly, or the comments that Molly had about not getting kids to participate virtually, totally understand that. And that's not just here in Nevada, that is across the country. I keep seeing lots of questions from staff from across the country. How do we get our kids engaged? They're doing it with work at school. What I think too is, if this continues past when school's out, that we may be able to get some more participation, because they won't be doing it all day. And realizing that, yes, we know that some families don't have internet. With Zoom, they can still call in too. That is an option to call in. And so while they can't see people, they can at least talk to people. And they can have that conversation. Or maybe I don't know how it works, but maybe like a Snapchat group where they all, I know my own son gets on Snapchat and talks to his friends all the time, and so as a group. And so maybe you do something like that. Just something that's not not a learning opportunity. It's just a lesson. So then also those cross-age linkages, the staff youth bonding. I think it is, I think it's important. Volunteers and youth, the adult youth, sometimes you get, like for myself, I still have probably, I would say 5 of my 4-Hers that I had when I I know that there's more than 5 now, but probably, I'm still close with several of those youth. I used to take them everywhere with me, and they were just they wanted that. So it's seeing that, getting those cross-age linkages between the volunteer or the staff and the youth. Encouraging ties with the family and the community. So, the service projects. And then making a small group time to allow that development. Yeah, Liz, I like that, and that's what we're looking at with some of those virtual, we were going to do the virtual spin clubs. I've kind of put them on hold for right now because I'm working on trying to do some at-home activity, kind of making a blended learning type situation where they could do some at-home and online stuff. So just trying to think about ways to get young people, where they can have some more activities. So, and then encouraging collaboration and cooperative learning. Not everything is about a competition, and we have to keep reminding our families that not everything's about competition, and that we need to have activities that encourage collaboration and cooperative learning rather than just making a competition out of it. I think our club meetings, that's where the collaboration and cooperative learning while they're preparing for competition. And I think that that's good. But just seeing that. Showing respect for the values of diverse cultures. I think, if you've got a club that has diverse cultures in it, diversity in it, I think it's great to actually think about that. One thing I did at one time that was so much fun is I had a group, I was teaching a trio group. So it's first generation college students, or potentially first generation college students. This was a group of high schoolers, but I was doing character education with them. And when we got to the respect pillar, we did an activity where they shared what's one holiday that your family, what's one holiday tradition that your family celebrates? What's one food, and most of the young people in this group were actually immigrants they were first generation in the United States, and they had immigrated from another country. And, what's one food that you still make at your house, you know, that you want to share. And that could be something at a club meeting where, you know, everybody brings some, you know, when we can have food back at club meetings, you know, that's always a right now, but everybody bring a, you know, something from your background, even if they're not first generation, even if they, you know, they're a fourth or fifth generation, there's probably some kind of food that they make within their family that comes from their heritage. And so that's a, you know, that's kind of a fun activity to do. And then they talk about, you know, where that came from and how, you know, how they do that, etc. You know, provide multiple opportunities to develop, you know, for youth to develop those relationships with adults, and encourage supportive peer relationships. Does anybody else have examples of strategies for belonging that they want to share? You can open your mic or you can put it in the chat box. Okay. All right, so we're going to move to mastery. And so this is making people feel like they feel and believe that they are capable and successful. I will just briefly, because you may hear it over the years, I personally, this is my own personal opinion, I don't necessarily like the word mastery, because when I think of the word mastery, I think of they have to be perfect at something, but there is a different, there's different definitions. And so the way I take it is not the way a lot of people take it. A lot of people feel like mastery is they're learning how to do something new. And so again, it's just how I interpret it. So you know, we use the term mastery, but just knowing that they don't have to be perfect at anything. They're learning how to do something new. So this is where you would mix those hands-on activities, project or exhibitions, you know, with applied, contextual, or work-related challenges. Maybe, you know, this is where we would teach, if they're learning about a project, maybe we bring in the career development piece of it. We supplement competition with cooperative games, activities or games. You know, that's one of the things I've been trying to do within this whole virtual thing is, what are some cooperative activities that we can do? So we've gotten a little bit of participation with the High G challenge. I've had several people submit photos, which is great. You know, that's just something, you know, they're learning something new each day. And then also next, oh, go ahead. Did we have a question? Oh, no, okay. But it is good to supplement with that. And then also to develop multifaceted approaches that include group investigation, they have experiential learning, and having multiple outcomes. I think that's really important. We don't just sit down and show them exactly how to do something. This is where experiential learning and inquiry-based learning really come into play, is that, you know, they're not going to learn how to do something if you show them and do every step for them. They need to experience how to do that. And really focusing on long-term goals of learning, providing prompt feedback to them, model and teaching that failure and frustration are learning experiences, that it's okay to fail. It's actually good to fail a few times. I think we've all done some of our best work when we have failed. And okay, any questions on mastery, or anybody want to share any examples on mastery? Okay, independence, knowing that, yeah, it's really important that young people know that they're able to influence people in events. And so this is one that's probably the hardest for us as adults to help instill. But we need to think about, before we make a decision about, you know, even about the county or the club, we need to ask, if youth could help make that, you know, could they make that decision? If the answer is yes, we need to involve them in that decision making. including youth in planning discussions and encourage input. I know that takes a lot longer, and I'm probably as guilty as anybody about that. It takes so long to get youth input and to have them involved that it's just easier just to make the decisions and go on. But it really is, I would say instill this within your club program, especially. The adults should not be running the meetings. The youth should be running the meetings. They should be deciding what they want to do. Asking a youth to do something instead of telling them to do this. At home, I find that works a lot easier if I ask to do something rather than telling him to do something. Those of you with children, you probably have experienced this as well. And the same thing goes with, with our 4-Hers. Giving youth responsibility to carry out an idea with minimal reminders, giving them, letting them try it and seeing if, watching them do that. And, if you have a young person that comes to you and says, I don't think I can do this, I don't, I'm not getting, or if you find that a youth is not getting, they're not following through, and you bring them in and talk to them about it, and, you need to, instead of criticizing them for not being able to follow through, you need to commend them for recognizing their limits of independence. And so, it's really good if young people can figure that out. If they tell you, no, I don't have time, then they, you need to respect that. Yeah, my kids are horrible at home with the minimal reminders. Yes, I agree, Jamie. Mine is too. But, if we can figure out how to do that, it's really kind of a cool. Helping youth explore courses of action or appropriate decisions. So working with them on, so this didn't work so well this time. What are we going to do differently next time? What kind of decision are you going to make next time? Never deprive that youth of overcoming the thrill of an obstacle. That's the biggest thing, is don't jump in too quickly to help them. Let them know that you're there to support them, but don't jump in and complete the project. And it depends on what it is for me. Maintain that close link between independence and responsibility, and share power with youth through self-governance in significant areas. So one of the things, a lot of communities have youth councils, and, that's getting that youth voice in there. Any questions on independence? This is probably, I will tell you, on the statewide evaluation, which we're just, Ryan is just finishing up, I think, the statistical analysis of that. And this is probably the one that we find we have the lowest scores on, is a sense of independence. And so, that's something we should probably be thinking about in the future, as we're moving, looking at programming and such. What is it that we can do to help instill that sense of independence in our young people?
I know, Carrie.
Yep.
When we're, I usually use this a lot in schools, and at first it really makes the teachers uncomfortable.
It does.
And, but as they see the kids progress, they start instituting more independence in their classroom. But at first they're like, no, you need to tell them this is what they need to do. And
it seems like complete chaos to the teacher.
Yeah.
And it's tough as a teacher, that is a tough thing, because you need, you have those kids a long time, all day, and, it's hard to let them just do what they want. But, Brian, that works for me, the evaluator, his wife is a GATE teacher in Washoe County, and she very much a STEM-based learner. I can't remember what her PhD was in, but anyway, it was something around that. But she takes that approach with her students, and it drives a lot of the other teachers crazy, but they really, but she gets results from her kids because they learn that sense of independence. So it's kind of cool.
Well, and I think it fits well with the GATE programs
Yep.
because they can do a lot of assessments on that
Yep.
independence and that ingenuity.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, so generosity, this is the one that we probably have one of the highest scores in nationally, is generosity. And that's really practicing, helping others through our own generosity. So tutoring, mentoring for cross age, it's really good to do, to have our young people doing service across age, generations, tying those learned skills and abilities to how they can be used in a positive way. So maybe they're learning a skill. I think about, our young people have, our sewing kids have been sewing for years and making skirts and making, whatever they're making. Now they're taking those skills and making the masks for our, for individuals that need those. So that's a positive, they learned this skill, and so they're, that's learning this. They're using that skill. So respecting, encourage bonds of friendship among young people and between the staff and the children, looking at that. Using as many opportunities as possible to encourage young people to imagine the feelings of others. This is probably something that we, right now I'm really, really, really struggling, and I'm trying to figure out what we can do, but I have just about had it with people thinking that they can say anything that they want, whenever they want. And I don't care politics, I don't care, I think it stems beyond that. And that's where we have to talk to our young people about understanding that people have they have feelings, and you may not agree with their viewpoints, but you can't be rude to them. It's one of those, we have those conversations at my own house a lot, but and it's not that my child is rude. Well, sometimes he's rude, but it's not that. It's just, I'm just trying to instill, you can't just say what you want to say. I can remember growing up, I had a great aunt, my great aunt Peggy, and I mean, it's a family joke of Peggy for her whole life would just say whatever was in her mind. And she hurt so many people's feelings over, with that. And so that's really, just because you think it doesn't mean it has to come out of your mouth. And so I just really am trying to figure out, you can say things, but let's figure out how to say them in a non-hurtful way. But it's driving me absolutely crazy right now. It's probably heightened right now. But so if anybody has any ideas of how we can address this in 4-H, that'd be awesome. But and again, highlighting the effects of a young person's behavior on others, both positive and negative, and reinforcing those gestures of caring and concern, and asking the young person to take responsibility. I think that, is really, we just have to constantly highlight that and make people realize that that's the behaviors we want. We don't want the negative behaviors. So if we, our youth development experiences become transformational when we provide these young people, when we give them the chance to belong, when we help them master skills through experience, when we help them influence others, and we help them learn the meaning of service. And that's really what, our goal is, to have a transformational experience for young people. And just so everybody knows, there is a whole curriculum on essential elements. I have not, I've done, in many places I've worked over the years, I've done full, 3 days of training on this curriculum. We've also taken it out to the counties, and it's a great curriculum to have to do, they have quick half an hour lessons. They have, there's multiple lessons that you could do. Like if you're having a leaders council meeting, I always think it's really important in leaders, for leaders councils and those types of meetings to actually do some kind of educational activity or some kind of education learning either beforehand or after, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you can get in. But that way you can get, you can teach them you can give them experiences like in essential elements. Maybe, you're obviously not going to go through the whole curriculum, but you might go through, one lesson. Maybe you're going to talk about that independence and you're going to give them this lesson on independence and how they can work with that in their club. So that curriculum is available. I have a copy at the state office. If anybody, that we can look at, it's potential. Like I said, it's really kind of a hands-on, you almost have to be in person to do that training. Parts of it you could do online, but like if I wanted to do the trainer type model, it would have to be an in-person. But I just wanted everybody to be aware that it's there. It is very good. And it gives more. And then I'm going to have some more handouts that I'll put in the box account with the record, when I do the recording, etc. So that way, and put the PowerPoint. So that way you guys can have some handouts to give to volunteers as well. So any questions about what's happened today? I went 2 minutes over. I'm sorry. I always try, but I kind of wanted to get that piece in just so everybody would actually hear it.
Can I ask a question to you guys? It's not really related to what we did, but since I have everyone here, are you all under the impression that we are supposed to go back to the office on Monday? Because my boss thinks we are, and I don't know. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I will tell you, no, you are not supposed to go back to the office on Monday.
Okay, so I will. Because I have you guys here, and I know it's a Holly question really, but you're here, so.
Yeah. I will, in fact, I have a meeting at 2 something today, 2:30, I think, I don't know. I have too many, we have a reopening committee. There's a group of us that are working on the protocols, and I will let them know that, I won't say who, but I'll just say there's a few counties that are under the impression that we're supposed to go back to work on Monday. So that way maybe a message can get sent out.
They'll know who it is. We're always confused here.
It's okay, but yeah, because we're working on how the standards essentially. So this is what can happen. This is what happens. If somebody absolutely has to go back to the office, then they could, potentially they could, but it's a process to do that. So they're still highly encouraging work remote from the university.
Yeah, I think he just thinks that our office, we're supposed to reopen on Monday, so we're supposed to go in and do my work evaluation, and I'm like, I don't think that's right, but
yeah.
I checked it with Carrie. Carrie said no office.
No. And you'll go, okay, whatever. But yeah.
Carrie, I wanted to tell you thank you for updating the YouTube with the trainings and stuff. It's been awesome to be able to go back and check in on things.
Yeah, I've tried to keep all of that. I know Tracy's on here and she's been doing a really good job on making sure that she's been going back and doing the captioning on all the videos as well. So the volunteer training that we did the 1st of April is up on there, and it is captioned. It's been on my to-do list to send out that link to everybody for the last, I don't know, month and a half, but and I will, but know that it's on there, and you can go on and get the link if you want to share that with any of your other volunteers. But I will get it sent out. I promise. I'm just, every time I go to do it, somebody needs something, like yesterday. So
Always the way it works out.
Always.